Hello and welcome. This is Eric Perez from Talking Leadership, welcoming you back to our ongoing series of Emerging Leader podcasts. I've got the great pleasure to be joined by another emerging leader based in Tasmania. So I'll just go through a little bit of his background and then have a discussion around these leadership questions, including why he's undertaken the roles that he's taken. So he is currently a student at the University of Tasmania. He is a student ambassador for agricultural studies at university, in addition to having two other roles, a directorship role with Rural Youth Tasmania and a media and promotions manager role with AgFest. So can I welcome to the podcast Dylan Bellchambers. How are you, Dylan?
Yeah, good. Yourself?
Mate, I'm fantastic. And look, I appreciate your time. I know you're busy, particularly with university. I'm also a student, not full time like yourself, but I understand the time constraints of studying. So, look, I do appreciate your time, mate.
No. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
Well, it's not just an opportunity and so I appreciate the thank you. But these kind of discussions get some good learning and information out to industry and non-industry people around what emerging leaders are thinking, which is always a good thing. So, look, can I ask you to give us a bit of a background into how you got into your roles, mate, before we head into the podcast proper?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I suppose generally, these roles in general, I've got into them because I find any opportunity is a great one. Yeah, there's nothing to be lost out of taking something on. You never know what you might gain, who you might meet, and what will come out of it. There's always something to be gained out of it. So, I suppose my board director role, I joined that because there was a few vacancies on the board of Rural Youth Tasmania at the time, and I've been in that for 10 months now. I've been in the organisation for 18 months, and that was another reason I sort of joined is as after somebody relatively new that have just come in and perhaps the reasons why and how we can drive. In particular, my market, my market segment being my age, being a little bit younger, which is we struggle a little bit to do, is gain someone around my age being 18, 19. And then, so my AgFest role, I got into that through Rural Youth. I suppose, again, Rural Youth Tasmania run AgFest, which are Tasmania's premier field days. And there was certainly the opportunity came up. I had a little bit of an interest and background in media and promotions, and I thought, what a great opportunity to get out there, meet some new people, a new experience, and it's been a fantastic ride with AgFest. I've completed my first AgFest in a big role. Just gone in May. So
Okay, so you've covered why you've taken on those roles. I guess it's when those opportunities arose, you took them on. So can I ask you, in your travels, what are the most critical leader capabilities that you've seen in leaders around you? So what is it that leaders that you've engaged with, what have they got, or what are they doing that makes them, in your mind, a capable and competent leader?
Look, there's many characteristics, and certainly in different contexts, different traits are certainly more applicable. But I find one that is coherent across the lot is listening. I find that's very valuable, particularly in my experiences when you've got somebody. I feel coming into some of these roles a little, especially being a lot younger than everyone else. I sort of feel, well, I don't feel inferior, but I certainly feel that perhaps my opinion doesn't carry as much weight, even though I know well and true it does. But you still have that feeling being at times young. Well, that's something for me I've sort of struggled with a little bit. But so that ability to listen has always been fantastic. Also, I would say, also just really, when you can see, like in the case of me, sometimes I'd say if they don't manage you, That's also very important. But they certainly, they're very aware of what you're doing, and also making sure that you are keeping on track, and sort of, I suppose, that keeping the whole team on track, because the whole teams make things move forward, I suppose, and I find that's quite valuable.
Oh, okay. So from a young person's perspective in the workplace, you're looking for that sort of mentoring, guiding, a bit of direction from the leaders that you're dealing with. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Look, I guess people will have varying views on the ability for younger employees, let alone younger leaders, to make a difference. But I think you'll find there's a lot of people wanting to listen to what your perspective is and act on that, given that you're prepared to have, if you're prepared, to have a view, then I think people are more readily prepared to engage. And thank you for bringing up a topic area that hasn't been touched on yet, is that listening skill that leaders need, that is critically important in any part of their job, but particularly for younger people and new employees to an organisation. That ability to listen to what they've got to say, I think, is a lot more important, and it's sometimes underdone, much to the detriment of the existing leadership, let alone the organisations in which they work for. So, look, one of the following questions to that, Dylan, and I'm particularly keen to get your view on this, is what do you think emerging leaders like yourself bring to the table that established leaders don't?
Apart from sometimes, well, I'll be honest, it is sometimes a lack of experience. That's certainly, held me up at times, but that's certainly been a great learning opportunity, and that's always great. And the teams have always been willing to accept that, and that's good. But I suppose, experience is perhaps the biggest one. But beyond that, that I can bring, I suppose, new perspectives. I think that's perhaps the biggest. I suppose that's just with anyone, when you get somebody new and fresh that comes in, whether they've got lots of experience or they don't, they bring that view. But I found particularly, inexperienced leaders don't have set ways about going or managing things. They can walk. They find that, like for me, I find I walk into situations and I sort of can, I get the feel for how they're working and operating, and then perhaps because I haven't come in with any prior experience, that I think about things logically and coherently, and come up with perhaps some suggestions for better ways of doing things. I find that's something I've really found quite apparent.
Oh, okay. So a degree of being able to take a bit more risk than maybe established leaders do coming into the workplace. I think that's a great way to look at things, and that's come up a few times as well. That ability to take a risk is something that people want to see, because it offers opportunities to learn. And there's always the consequence that things might go wrong, but if you don't try something, you'll never know what the outcome might be. Listen, do you now? I get the sense that you've got a strong ag background. Has that shaped the way you look at leadership at all, the context in which you've worked, or not?
Oh, I'd certainly say my experiences growing up on the farm have certainly set me in a good stead for seeing what good leadership looks like. I found a lot of people in agriculture, there's a lot of leaders out there. That's certainly, compared to a lot of other industries, at times I can feel under-recognised or under-acknowledged. The farmer out there really is, out on his own, is a leader in his field. And, there's so many innovative farmers and people working in agriculture.
One question as a follow up to that, and again using your experience, mate, is have you looked for, or have you been provided with professional development opportunities in your travels, and what have they looked like, and what is it that you're looking for in particular for yourself when it comes to this thing about developing your skills in this area?
Well, just recently, just over mid-semester break, I was fortunate through Rural Youth Tasmania. I was fortunate to receive a scholarship to head to Marcus Oldham for a week to complete the Marcus Oldham Rural Leadership Program, and that was a really eye-opening and inspiring program. Not just the leadership itself, but and that program, it's just fantastic. And I'd encourage anyone and everyone to consider it's a fantastic development opportunity. I gained so much out of it, not only from the program as I was saying just before, but just the other, I think it was about the other 35, 38 people that were there. Just meeting fellow ag leaders from across Australia was absolutely inspiring. A real highlight of perhaps my leadership experiences going there, and just being able to talk with fellow leaders that are emerging and growing and developing is a real highlight.
So using that experience and others, I guess, in your travels, particularly being at university now and seeing what university can offer, have you formed or ever thought about that concept of lifelong learning? Do you have a view on that, mate?
Oh, look, I absolutely 100% back lifelong learning. You've got to be able to do it. Change is inevitable. It's always going to happen. You can either flow with it or be part of it or lead it, or you can just stay behind. But, staying behind isn't going to get you very far. I really find you've really got to move forward. And, on forever learning, absolutely, lifelong learning. I think it's critical, and it's also, I think it's really exciting to always be being educated about new things. I'll be honest, I'm a bit of a tech nerd, and I love seeing the latest things in technology, and in particular, ag technology over the last 10 years. That's been an incredibly exciting space, and I'll do get very excited over some of the things that are coming out of there, and one day hopefully can sort of work quite directly in that space.
Yeah, I was going to say that's quite a good space to pick to work in. You're not gonna go too far wrong working in technology and in the agricultural space. It is quite a booming area. So here's a statement I've been putting to the other emerging leaders, and I'd be fascinated to get your view on this particular statement. Leaders are born, not made.
Look, I don't think leaders are born. If you take the opportunities and the pathways that are out there, if you're willing and committed, absolutely, leaders can be made. I've seen people, that have really been from the quiet little shell that would never raise their hand to ask a question to go to leading the field just because they've taken up some opportunities, been pushed by some other leaders to push their boundaries. So, absolutely, I think that leaders are made, not born.
Okay, no, that's fine. For me, I'm still personally, I'm still a fence sitter on that, but I can see why you might go one way or another. And look, thank you for sharing that. So the last part of the podcast, mate, is just around a couple of questions around leadership models. So do you have a mentor? Have you created mentoring relationships, be they formal or informal?
Look, I'd certainly have some mentors that have been, perhaps critical to my development to where I am today, and in both capacities, informal and formal. Particularly through some of my volunteering, there's certainly been the formal capacity, but then your mates on the other side in the informal, and in both sides of that, in many different people. There's certainly been, a great sense of mentoring or learning from their experiences, and I really value those opportunities I've had.
Fantastic. Final question here, mate, and this one is, again, be interested to get your perspective on this. Is there such a thing as a perfect leader?
No, I really don't think there is one perfect leader. Perhaps maybe in one particular context or incident, it couldn't have been handled any better. But certainly there's nobody can do everything and meet everyone's, changing and differentiating requirements as a leader. But there's certainly the ability to be able to accommodate those in the best way possible and make, decisions on behalf of the team and in the best interest, and that really, create thriving teams and workforces is Yeah, that's ideal.
Okay, no, that's fantastic, and it's a nice way to end the discussion, mate. Look, I appreciate your time, and for the listeners, I've been having a chat on leadership with a great emerging leader, Dylan Bellchambers. Thank you, Dylan, for your time.
No, thank you, Eric. I really appreciate it.
Mate, it's been fantastic. And before we go, again, I'd like to thank the sponsor of the podcast program, being Sydney Fish Markets. Thanks again to Brian Skepper and the team for showing some faith in me and helping me to get this off the ground. So for those listening, please, if you're in Sydney, go and check out Sydney Fish Markets. It's a fantastic set of markets with some really good people. And again, fresh local seafood, supporting the ag and fisheries sector is something that everyone should be doing when they get the chance. So again, thank you for listening, and thanks again to Dylan. And this has been Talking Leadership. I'll catch you all in the next podcast. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, buddy.